Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about pricing your POD products. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Print on Demand cast. It is fantastic to be back here talking with all of you, or to all of you, I guess. But hopefully soon we'll be talking with you, because we will be at the Long Beach Impressions show in January. So maybe someday we can, someday it will come. Nonetheless, before we get into the meat and potatoes of what this show is and has for us, whatever platform you're listening to this on, rate, review, like, subscribe, share, whatever you have to do to get the word out. Please do that. We would be greatly appreciative of that, because we're trying to defeat the mythical algorithm overlords to tell them, hey, people want to see this content. And it's not just me talking to you each and every week. No, there's a co-captain, Travis Ross, joining us once again from Make Your Mark Designs, or Make Your Mark Studios, I guess you could call it. You have a little setup there now. It's a whole thing. The whiteboard's gone. The clock, where it's always 3:45, is gone now. You are actually in an undisclosed location. So, what's up, man? It's good to be chatting with you.
Yeah, this could be like a ransom video, but I was going to say, I feel like the last few times you've done an intro, you've talked about the meat and potatoes of the episode, and I'm just aware that we probably have some vegetarian listeners, some vegan listeners, pescatarian, and I just want to make sure that we're being inclusive in our in the way that we describe the show and the main part of the show. So take that feedback and run with it, Josiah. It'll make you a better person.
All right, so meat, potatoes, or the broccoli and cauliflower, or see, I don't even know what's good.
I know.
Like
this was a bad rabbit hole to go down. And again, I don't know that people all like rabbits, so this was also a bad.
Yeah, but hey,
other kind of hole.
Get into the fish and asparagus of the episode, and gross. I mean, I like asparagus, not a fan of fish, but we've derailed already, and we're not even 5 minutes into the show. So here we are, back again. You, sir, had an eventful weekend gallivanting in New Mexico with your wife. How was that? How did that go? What did you learn? Do you know the way to Santa Fe now? And how'd that all pan out for you?
I do know the way to Santa Fe. Yeah, we went to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Well, actually, we flew into Albuquerque and then drove a convertible to Santa Fe and looked at a lot of galleries. There's this road called Canyon Road that has over 100 galleries on it. That took us, a solid 2 days. I mean, not a solid 2 days, but yeah. Ate a ton of great food, went all over, drank a lot of great drinks, had just a real good time, drove up into the mountains, got some cool pictures. And my wife got to see a lot of art and really enjoyed it. And it was a lot of fun. And then we came back on Sunday and watched Arsenal beat Man City. And we watched the Chiefs beat the Vikings, which that means that my fantasy team lost, because I can't have the trifecta. I can't have Arsenal win, the Chiefs win, and my fantasy team win. But anyway, I would rather the Chiefs and the Arsenal win than my fantasy team. Yeah, at least this year, because I'm doing terrible. But
yeah, and
that was my
Travis
weekend.
Kelce's okay. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. That's what happens when you pay more attention to who you're dating, Travis. Yeah, that's good, man. And over all my other things, weekend was pretty stock standard, nothing too crazy. Have a team night at the church that I attend tonight, and it's 70s themed, and so a lot of my weekend was accruing bell-bottom pants and a shirt and a wig, and so it's a whole thing. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And then next week at this time, I will be, well, not at this time, a week from tomorrow, boarding a plane to go to Sweden for 5 days. So that'll be cool.
Nice.
So that's kind of what we're gearing up towards. But yeah, otherwise, pretty chill weekend. We'll see each other this week again. We have poker Friday night on
That's
Friday
right.
the 13th. We'll see what happens there. If anyone's unlucky, but should be a good time. I think we've accrued enough men to play now, so I think we have like 5 or 6. Before there was 3, so we win. All right, so let's get into it here this week. We're going to start off with this week's point of interest.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome to the point of interest part of the POD cast. So grab your hat and hold on tight because we got some learning to do.
Learning to do. All right, so here we go. Before we get into the main event of the show, we're going to talk about DTG shirt fabrics. It's good to know, and even if you're not doing production
Right.
in-house and physically printing on these things, it's still good to know what exactly you're ordering. Just the more product knowledge you have, the more you can educate your customer, the more they'll think you're the expert, the more they'll recommend you and leave nice reviews and say good things about you, like you all should do for us. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, it's a cheap plug.
It's good if you're a cheap bastard.
So we're gonna go into, we'll kind of do like DTG, what's good, DTF, what's good, down direct to film, by the way, not the other one. But not all cotton is created equally. So there's ring spun versus open end cotton. And Travis, what is the difference between
Yeah.
those
First
two
of all,
things?
you should know that in DTG, direct to garment, natural fibers are going to be your best friend, and
Yeah.
because the inks don't actually adhere that well to polyester, and they're getting better. They're a lot better than when we used to do it, but I mean, when we first started doing it,
Yeah.
but it's still just not. You want to have 100% natural fiber. So a lot of it's cotton. And when they talk about ring spun versus open ended, the ring spun, it's just exactly what it sounds. It's spun in rings, whereas open ended has like fibers that they don't connect, and so there's more what they call fibrillation, which is
Sure.
the cotton actually kind of sticks up.
And it's real annoying.
Yeah,
When
it's
you're
really
doing,
annoying when you're
trust
trying to
me.
print
Yeah,
something.
when you try and print it and there's little fibers sticking up through the ink, it's not fun. Anyway,
Doesn't
go ahead.
it
I
doesn't
digress.
look it doesn't look good.
Doesn't look great.
That's
No.
yeah. Typically your combed ring spun cotton is going to be the softest of the cotton shirts. So that's like a Bella Canvas 3001 or a Next Level 3600. Even the soft style, the Gildan soft style is a ring spun cotton, versus like a Gildan 5000 or a Gildan 2000. Those are going to be more, they're going to be open ended, and you can
Yeah.
usually tell, when you might buy a shirt off online, and you get it and you're like, "Ooh, this feels like cardboard." Well, that's
Sure.
open-ended cotton.
Sure.
Um, and it's just not, it doesn't print as well and it doesn't feel as good in my opinion. But whereas the ring spun, you get a Bella Canvas 3001, and it feels soft, it's nice. Those are the 100% cotton shirts. Now you start talking about tri blends, and you start talking about
Yeah.
even like 60/40s and things like
Yep.
that. Those can get really soft because you're increasing the amount of polyester in the garment, which creates that softness. Your DTG inks might not
Right.
stick to it as well, which is potentially where DTF could come in, direct to
Right.
film, because direct to film can go on polyester cotton, it can go on leather, I mean, there's just
Yeah.
so many things you can do with DTF. But the feel of the print in DTF doesn't feel as good as the feel of the print in
Correct.
DTG, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a lot about cotton.
Yeah.
But there's more. But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. There's Egyptian cotton or Pima cotton. And
Mhm.
so Egyptian cotton is pretty self-explanatory. It's grown by the Nile River. So it's super high end.
Mm.
Just so everyone knows, the Nile is not just a river in Egypt. So but most of our shirts that we get are Pima. They're grown in Peru and in the US. It's a little shorter strand, but it is still comparable. To Egyptian cotton, and it's again, it's more cost effective as well. One thing that I found that you're going to have to educate your clients on, regardless if you're doing production or not, or if you're just drop shipping, or if Printful is doing your production, they're always going to want the nice stuff for the cheap price. And so if you know why the nice stuff is not cheap, you can kind of explain it a little bit better. I know, in my experience, everyone wants a tri blend. It's like everyone knows what a tri blend is. Everyone wants the tri blend. And so when you are explaining why tri blends more, it's just good to be educated on that. So talking about shirt weight, um, anywhere from 3 ounces to 6 ounces is pretty standard. Most of our or many typical DTG shirts range from about 4.5 to maybe 5 and 5 1/4 or so in ounces. But who is buying the shirt is super super important. Um, because if you think about it, someone that's doing contracting is going to want a heavier shirt, um, because they're going to be out in the sun, they're going to be out in ducks. They're going to be. We used to print shirts for a guy that does heating and cooling, and he wanted a heavier shirt because he was going to get up in the rafters. He was going to get up kind of in the nitty gritty, if you will.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
And so he wanted something that was more high or more weighty, that would last. Tri blends or softer, thinner shirts weren't going to work well for him because he was going to be putting that shirt through the ringer. And so it was going to be really, really difficult for him to not have something that was larger. And full transparency, I don't know where Travis went. Travis has disappeared. He left the call. I mean, he might be having Wi-Fi issues. I've been having Wi-Fi issues all day. Who knows what is happening? But we're gonna figure it out here shortly, I'm sure. So let's keep going then. From shirt weight, you have thread weave. So you'll see 18 single, 30 single, and 40 single yarns. The more cotton threads per yarn rather, the tighter the weave. And so therefore a 40 single 100% combed ring spun is extremely soft versus an 18 single open end cotton garment. So again, the tighter the weave, the softer that it's going to be, which is, again, what a lot of people are wanting. They're wanting that softer feel. And so again, this is just for your information. It's not necessarily, not everyone's going to ask these things when it comes to, your end user, your client. Not everyone's going to want to know these things, but it's good for you to be armed with information just for yourself to know, especially when you're shopping, when you're looking for something to suggest to a client or a customer, and they give you kind of like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. You can do your research with the knowledge that you do know and find specific things that are helpful for them in that space. And then finally, make sure your garment is pre-shrunk. Most garments are, but because this is a natural fiber that has been weaved together, this is key. Go track with me for a moment. Okay, just track for me for a second. Let's think back to a time when you have the perfect shirt. Man, it's a great shirt. You love it. It fits well when you first put it on, or you love the design. You're like, my God, this is amazing. I can't believe I found such a perfect shirt. I never knew a perfect shirt could exist, from design to feel to size. I love it. And then you put it in the laundry and you're anticipating. You can't wait to wear that shirt again. Hey, look who's back. We don't know what happened, but he's back. He's here. Let's
No
celebrate.
idea what happened.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Okay, so anyway, Travis, we are talking about, kind of ran through the point of interest in your absence, kind of hitting all the points. We're talking about pre-shrunk. Make sure it's pre-shrunk. And
Right.
I was weaving a yarn, no pun intended, about when you find that shirt that you love, it's a perfect design, it's a perfect feel. You love it the first time you put it on, your favorite
Mhm.
color, and you're so excited. You didn't know that a shirt like this could exist that checks all of the boxes. You put it in the laundry and you're just waiting. You have a day of the week, you're like, I'm gonna wear that shirt again because it looks good on me, it feels good on me, it's stellar. You get it back from the laundry and you unfold it or you take it off the hanger and you put it on, and well, it's a little tighter or it's a little shorter. It doesn't fit quite the same way. You're not as in love with it as you were, and now you have buyer's remorse, or you wish you would have, hang dried or hung dry or whatever the correct phrasing
Mhm.
is for that, but you wish you would have done it. Um, because yeah. And this has happened to me so many times to the point where I tell my wife, like, just hang dry everything I own, please. Like that's, it might be pretty strong. It might not be. I don't care. Just hang dry everything. Because
Mm.
especially when it comes to hoodies, my least favorite thing
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world is throwing on a hoodie. It happened. I got one in Germany that I loved. Saw it at the airport, and I was like, "Man, I really like this design. It's cool. I'm gonna buy it. I'm in Germany. I'm not gonna see
Mhm.
this thing again. I'm just gonna snag it." So I did. Washed it, put it on again, and it just did not fit the same. And part of it is that
Mm.
I could have misinterpreted the sizing in Germany because it's all very strange. I clearly didn't read the tag because it's in another language. But the point is, you want to make sure that your garment is pre-shrunk because you don't want that experience to be what your customer goes through.
Right.
And you need to know, you need to verify and let them know that it is pre-shrunk. And then, maybe when you're posting the listing or you're listing it for sale, have instructions on how to wash, what settings, what temperature,
Mhm.
when you're drying it, or do you recommend hang drying the garment? Like what does that
Mhm.
look like in that process to make sure that your customer's happy and that you are confident in what you are selling?
Yeah, one of the things that, I do with, my shirts and, probably should put this, I don't know, on a packing slip or something, but, I will tell people, "Turn the shirt inside out when you wash it," just to preserve the image as well. It doesn't really have anything to do with, pre-shrunk or, um, anything like that, but just as far as, like, garment care, it can make your shirt last, much or your
Yeah,
design last a lot longer because it's not rubbing up against other things. It's
for
inside.
sure.
It just protects it a little bit. So
Yep.
there's something that, you might consider telling people. You can sometimes edit those packing slips, or you could potentially put an insert in something,
Yeah.
or just put it on your listing, with washing instructions or something like that, just so you've communicated that to
Yeah.
them so they can, make the best decision for them.
Correct. Yep. All right. Well, that does it for our point of interest. So we're going to go straight into this week's main event. All right. Well, as we said at the top of the show, we're going to talk about pricing your POD products, making sure that you are charging the correct amount, the right amount that's going to get you what you need. And this kind of ties into last week. We did our Q4 checkup. So if you need to go see if you're in good standing for Q4 or what your status is for Q4, do your weekly checkup and see what your
I got
health
a
is like.
fever.
Hopefully you don't have a fever. So we're going to talk about pricing your PMT products. We talked a bit about this last week, but this is a good time to do this and kind of review your pricing.
Yeah.
So pricing is not a one-time thing. It's not a set it and forget it. I don't know if you guys remember those ridiculous commercials back in the day where the guys like set it and forget it, and it's like some kind of rotisserie chicken cooker or whatever. I referenced it a couple weeks ago. No one knew what I was talking about. I felt ancient.
I
Anyway,
still do not know what you're talking about, and I'm
my
older than
God,
you,
seriously?
so
My God. Okay.
yeah, no
I
idea,
have
bro.
to, I'll send you a link.
Okay.
I watched a lot. Never mind. So, a lot of infomercials apparently. So yeah, pricing is not a one-time thing. You should adjust as you move forward. So because there's vendor price increases, there's competition, and shipping costs. There's a lot of things that can contribute to this.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, you really
So, yeah, go ahead.
at the end of the day, you want to price what your product's actually worth, and there's a lot of things that go into that. It's not just how much did it cost you.
Right.
It's how much time it took you to get that design. Did you pay for the design? Did you, spend time on the design? It's not necessarily, um, you don't want to base your pricing solely on what other people charge.
Correct.
I mean, you can. That is a legit pricing strategy,
Yeah.
but it is okay to charge more if your product, maybe you're selling a Bella canvas and they're selling one of those, Gildan 5000s. Obviously, it's
Right.
probably gonna cost you more for one, but it makes a lot of sense. It's a better product.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do to increase your perceived value. If some of these companies, or if you do your own fulfillment, you could get custom made poly bags that
Right.
are really nice, or different things like that, different types of packaging that increases that value. You could put a hang tag on it, actually on the garment, and it's like, okay, well,
Right.
that it feels like it's coming from a shop as opposed to just getting a gray poly bag in the mail and ripping it open and your shirt's there, with a packing slip or something.
Sure.
That's a lower perceived value than, maybe a really nice bag, and
Yeah.
uh, all of that stuff. So there are different ways to increase your perceived value, but you really do want to price what your product's worth, and um, if your design is better, that's another reason
Right.
to charge more. Um, so let's actually get into, like, what is a pricing strategy.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Um, and so, yeah, there's a lot of different pricing strategies, and these are just a few. And you may have heard some of these, you may not have heard. You may have heard these with different names, but
Uh-huh.
let's just jump in and talk about like 5 of them.
Sure.
And then, so the first one is going to be like cost plus pricing. And this is kind of what we were trying to do. If you've listened to the show for a long time, when we were doing all the time testing, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what's the average time it takes to do one coffee mug or one t-shirt or one embroidered hat or whatever it was, because the cost plus pricing calculates all of your costs and
Yeah.
then adds a markup on top of that. So,
Yep.
it's time, it's the actual, the products, it's your overhead, all of those things, and then you have a markup on top of that. So that's cost plus pricing.
Yeah. Yeah, the next one would be consider it's competitive pricing, which we talked about, which is setting the price
Mhm.
based on what the competition charges. So you can adjust accordingly if someone's selling
Mhm.
something the same, another T-shirt or whatever it is, or similar design. You can
Yeah,
go with what the competition is charging to try and just
right.
stay with them. It is a strategy for sure. Um, it can be problematic, because then you get into like a
Yep.
race to the bottom, right? Which is what happened a lot when we sold on
Mhm.
Amazon. Just not just like T-shirts, but this comes in to where when you're on an Amazon listing and you see that it's available from 5 different buyers. Well, those 5 different buyers most likely are people like Travis and I who have a business who are selling on Amazon and are sourcing these products to add to this listing, and we added to the
Mhm.
listing because of its ranking, and how quickly that product is moving. So there can be 5 people selling on one listing, and you can come in and match price with somebody, but then they'll drop the price, and then you'll have to match to drop the price, and then because they want the buy box, they want the sale. When someone lands on that listing and goes to buy it, they're obviously going to go with the cheapest option. So they want whoever that seller is wants the buy box, and so it becomes a race to the bottom, and it's super irritating.
Yeah.
The number of times I'm sure Travis and I both could regale you with stories for hours upon hours of times when we sourced something that was profitable, and then by the time we went to list it or the day after we sent it in, some person dropped their price because they didn't want us to steal any of the buy. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense
Right.
whatsoever, but it is something that happens. So that's kind of can be the problem with the
Right.
competitive pricing. The next one would be price skimming. So, Travis, talk to us about price skimming.
Yeah, so price skimming is going to be you're going to set a high price and then lower it as the market evolves. And so this could be if you found, a niche that nobody is in, and you're one of the very
Yeah,
first. You kind of own it, so you can set your price wherever you want. Like now, obviously, you have to have buyers, or it won't work because
right.
you just won't sell anything. But if you find something that there is demand for something, you can set a high price and then lower it as the market evolves. One example of this would be potentially like flat screen TVs. Now, I know the technology plays a role in it, so it's gotten cheaper,
Yeah,
to produce these things, or computers, those types of things. But if you look at how much a computer or a flat screen TV was priced when it first came out, I mean, it was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and now you
yeah,
can
I
get
know.
one
I
for a
used I
couple
used to
hundred.
sell them. Yeah, exactly. I used to make commission off of those things when I sold them at, Radio Shack because it was for a 55-inch, LCD. Because then it was LCD versus plasma. Like back in the day, that
Mhm.
was the big like, which is better? And so you'd sell a new LCD, flat screen TV, 55-inch for almost 5 grand.
Yeah,
And,
right.
that's the big ticket item, and you're excited that you sold it. And now I look at it and I'm like, there's zero chance a TV salesman could survive. Like, where's the margin in this? It's all
Yeah,
fight. Now that same TV goes for $500 or whatever. It's just
yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's become commoditized for sure.
Yeah.
The next one is uh, penetration pricing, and this is trying to get
Oh,
market share. So you would set a low price to enter a competitive market and then raise it later as you've established yourself as a
right.
salesperson or a sales leader in that category.
Right.
You see this a lot with a lot of Amazon merch on demand sellers. They'll
Yep.
they'll price it at I don't make, they'll price it at the absolute lowest to where they don't make any money at all. They don't make any royalty. They'll price it as low as Amazon will let them. Um, just to try to get sales rank, try to get some reviews, and then they'll slowly raise it over time. So, I mean, it
Right.
can be an effective strategy, um, but you have to be able to kind of float yourself financially for a while
Sure.
because you're not going to make
It'll
very
take a
much when
second.
you start. Yeah, it's going to take a while for you to penetrate that market.
Right. And the next one and the last one we'll talk about is value-based pricing, which Travis, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but
Yep.
just that perceived value, basing your product or services price on what the customer believes that it's worth. And
Mhm.
you can, to Travis's point earlier, you can add things to the packaging, add things to up the perceived value. But usually, if you're dealing with someone's perceived value, it's what they think it's worth upon first assessment of the product. And so, I think a lot of times you see this kind of value-based pricing on platforms like Etsy, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
handmade goods, a lot of arts and craft kind of um, products that are up, and so people are charging based on what the customer's perceived value is on a wood, coaster or a wood cigar
Mhm.
box or cutting
Okay.
board or whatever, so they're pricing accordingly.
Yeah, I got my parents Freudian slip. My wife and my family actually it was from my wife and my kids. They bought me a couple years ago for Christmas a decanter and four glasses set,
Yeah,
and it was nice. It's nice glass, but it came in this black fitted box that had like this gold or silver. I can't remember what color. Um, kind of, shiny writing on it,
right.
and you open it up and it's got a magnet at the top and you open it up and then it's sitting in the really
Yeah,
nice foam and all of that, and I was like, "Dang, this is really nice." And, I remember finding out how much my wife bought it for just because I was curious and,
yeah.
I it I can ask that, I guess. And then last year, we were looking at doing some of that on Etsy and creating like a decanter, potentially even like laser engraved,
Right.
options. Because this one they got me was just not even it was just literally had no personalization on it. Um,
Yeah.
and I was shocked at how less expensive it was when I could go, I could go get it wholesale. And I was amazed at the markup that they had gotten. And a lot of it was
Yeah.
because they had spent so much time making that, really nice box, and the perceived value of that decanter and those glasses was really high because
Yeah.
they focused on that packaging. So that's an example of value-based pricing. It's not necessarily doesn't have necessarily anything to do with how much it costs you to sell it.
Right.
It's what the customer sees it as. How valuable do they see it? What is their perception of that value? And that's
Right.
what you base
Right.
it on.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to as we're talking, I'm trying to find I just literally saw an episode of Shark Tank last night,
Mm.
of this guy who is selling, basically spoon rings, and he's makes custom ones. And the process in which the packaging that he does, he makes them all himself, and he drops these, new designs once a month. But he has the sharks open a box, and so they open the box, and in the box is a bottle of
Mhm.
water. They take out the bottle of water, and it says pour right here. So they pour the water, and then the dry ice fog comes up, and then they break open the thing, and more fog from the rings. And it was the most elaborate packaging I'd ever seen to
Mm.
display 4, custom spoon rings. But talk about adding perceived value
Yeah,
to
for
your
sure.
product. I mean, it was ridiculous. So if I find a clip of that, maybe I'll post it in the Facebook group if I can find something, and kind of post it, and call back to this episode. So, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy. So, all
Yeah.
right. So let's talk about, there's loss leaders as well, that you can
Mhm.
do. And of
We've
course,
talked a
loss
little
leaders.
bit about that.
Yeah, a little bit. But let's talk about how you come up with the pricing, and different things you need to take into
Sure.
consideration when developing the pricing. So you have variable costs, fixed costs, profit margin. So variable costs are the name,
Mhm.
is costs that change. So um
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So you've got your COGS, or your cost of goods sold,
Mhm.
and how much the mug is, how much the shirt is, how much the sweatshirt is, and just because it's a different product each time, by nature, it's going to be a variable. So, you've got that. You've got packaging.
Mhm.
Again, are you gonna go for the dry ice effect when the guy pours the water in the thing, or are you just going for a U-line, poly bag, and they open it up and it is what it is? You got to figure that
Mhm.
out, and you got to factor that into pricing.
Right.
Labor, how much time does it take? And you got to figure this out, even if it's just you doing it. Because a lot of times, I think when you think about if it's just you, or you and a friend, and you're doing this, you don't often think of time, because you're thinking, well, this is my job. I'll
Right.
be doing this anyway. You're more cognizant of time when you have a staff, or people under you that are doing the production for you, because you're then issuing paychecks every 2 weeks, or whatever that looks
Yeah.
like. So be sure to
You're very
factor in.
cognizant of it when
Yes.
you're right. Yeah, when you
Yeah,
have
when
payroll
you have
coming in
a
every 2 weeks.
payroll. Yes, exactly. So, but factor in labor, and even
Yeah.
if it's your VA's time, if it's your time, even if you're just doing drop shipping with another provider, the time that it's taking you to get the design, factor all of that in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the things I wanna say about that is, because some people will push back, like you said, and say, "Well, I'm doing it. I'm getting all
Right.
the profit, and so I'm not going to factor in my time because I'm making money on this, and this is my thing, and it's just me, and I would be, working anyway, so I'm not gonna use that." The problem with that is that's not scalable because no one else will do it for free. So you have to
Right.
factor in your labor into
Yeah.
your variable costs, or you'll forever be stuck doing exactly what you're doing today because you'll never be able to have anybody else do that, um,
Right.
and you'll never be able to do anything else in your business. You won't be able to scale. You won't be able to
Right.
grow.
Yeah. Another thing, shipping. We talked about this a little bit as well, but the cost of shipping,
Mhm.
the weight of the item, that's going to be different. A shirt is different to ship than a 11-ounce mug, or a wood sign. It's all different. So you got to factor
Mhm.
that into your
Or
pricing
how
as
far it's
well.
going too.
Or yeah, exactly, where it's
Mhm.
going. And advertising, if you're putting any kind of ad dollars behind this, whether it is on Amazon, a pay-per-click campaign, or whether you're doing Google ads, if you have your own website, or or whatever that looks like, you got to factor that in as well
Mm.
to make sure that
Yeah.
you're making money for the money that you're investing in that. So, uh, Travis, fixed costs. What are fixed
Yeah.
costs, or what are some examples?
So fixed costs, it doesn't matter if you sell 10 or 10 million, the number on each of those items does not change. The biggest or the best example really of fixed cost is overhead. So
Sure.
um, your rent, if you have a space, or if
Yep.
you don't, it doesn't matter. Your electricity, your utilities, all of your internet, those things that are going to happen whether you sell 10 things or 10,000 things. So you have to have internet to run this business. Perhaps you've got some subscriptions to like a ship station or a Photoshop or,
Right.
E-Rank or, any of those subscription based things that you need to, make your mock-ups. So bulk mock-up or what's the other one?
Yeah.
Placeit.net.
Place
There's
it.
a lot of those things that you need to be able to create listings and such,
Yeah.
or to do research. And so those are going to be fixed every single month. They're going to come in no matter how many things you sell. You could put like your platform listing fees in that. For instance, Amazon, the Seller Central side charges about $40 a month. It's like $39.99. Um, and then Etsy listing fees, uh, you could put that into a variable, because it's kind of part of the commission. And depending on what category you're selling in, depending on how much cost it is, um, it could go either way. It could be a
Yeah.
fixed cost, but it's more variable because it's based on the actual product that you're selling and how much you're selling it for.
Right.
Um, so if you sell a t-shirt for $20 one month and $30 the next month, well, that's not a fixed, that 15% commission or 7% commission or
Right.
whatever is not the same. So it's probably more of a variable cost. But anything that you're going to be paying every single month, no matter what,
Right.
is going to be a fixed cost. So you have to extrapolate that over however many sales you have. So
Right.
obviously the percentage or the ratio of how much that fixed cost is going to affect your profit margin goes down the more you sell because it's fixed. So let's say you have $1,000 of fixed costs a month. Well, if you sell 10 things, and you have to pay $1,000 plus the variable costs, you're in the red for sure. But if you sell
Yeah.
10,000 things and your fixed cost is still $1,000, your variable costs, are going to be variable based on how many things you sell, but your fixed costs are going to be lower. So
Right.
the more you can sell, the more you can save, I guess,
Yeah.
would be a good way to look at it with fixed costs, versus variable costs, which are going to fluctuate based on how much you
Based.
actually
Right.
sell.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about then profit margin, which is kind of the last piece of this. And a lot of
Mhm.
people, Travis, are probably thinking, they probably heard the term keystone pricing. What does that mean? Keystone. What? So for those that would
Yeah.
be wondering, keystone definition, how would you define that in terms of profit margin?
So Keystone is traditionally a brick and mortar type of, it's a brick and mortar margin, I guess. And what Keystone is basically if I sell it to you for 15, you can retail it for 30. If it's
Yeah.
basically just double. So
Right.
whatever I buy it from, I'm going to, if it's a Keystone markup, it's just double that. A lot of
Right.
times that doesn't work online. One of the reasons is because perceived value is higher in a store. You're going into a physical location and they have the ability to, you know, make the store look nice. And so there's a
Yeah.
higher perceived value. So you might buy that same t-shirt for $30, in a store, but maybe you're not willing to pay $30 when it's online,
Right.
and you're only going to pay 20. So typically it's hard to get Keystone when you are, drop shipping with print on demand.
Yeah.
Your margins are going to be more in the like, 20, 30%, maybe sometimes 40% depending on the product.
Yeah.
After you factor in your variable and your fixed cost, you're probably looking at, 20, 30, 40%.
Right.
Um, But this is where, your market research is important. What are
Yeah.
other people selling things for in this particular niche, this particular type of product? And then you can go to your Guten or your Printify or wherever and say, well, how much would it cost me to make this or get it? And then what are my costs and my variable costs? Can I get in that 20, 30, 40% um, area based on
Yeah.
what I'm seeing other people selling these things for?
Sure.
Um, and again, you think we're in two minds. We talked earlier about don't base your pricing on what other people are selling it for, but you need to be able to justify what
Yeah.
you're charging one way or the other. So,
Sure.
it doesn't have to necessarily match it, um, but it does need to probably be in the same vicinity, unless you're going for a higher perceived value, or your designs are just out of this world,
Right.
or you're putting it on a higher quality product, et cetera, like we've
Right.
been
Right.
been talking about.
Yeah. And another thing about Keystone is that it's a terrible
Yeah,
beer.
it's good if you're cheap bastard.
So don't drink it. So you can do some price testing. We've talked about often, pricing is not a one-time thing. So you can test prices. You can see where things sit. It's not forever commitment. If you want to set something at, a shirt at $25 and see if it sells, then yeah, see if it sells.
Yeah.
You might be able to get away, especially if you're doing stuff for influencers, if you're helping do merch or you're partnering with them
Mhm.
to do drop ship their merch, even if you're not doing the production of it. The perceived value of that piece of clothing or that merch item is automatically higher in the customer's mind because they're buying something that is supporting the person that they're already a fan of. And so in those
Right.
instances, I would tell people, yeah, you start at 24.99, just see what happens. Because
Mhm.
people will probably buy it because they want to support you and they're a fan. So it already has a higher perceived value simply because of the brand or the person that is selling that item. Um,
Yeah.
and then see what happens from there. See how it goes. And if you have to drop it, you have to drop it. Then that's
Mhm.
fine. To the penetration kind of price model is start low and then raise it as you go. That's another way to kind of test pricing.
Mhm.
We talked last week about how in Q4 you can raise those prices, and both Travis and I have done this.
Mhm.
We did that when Jason and I were selling during Q4. It was very much a, okay, well, let's up the price by this percentage because it's the holidays and people will pay more during the
Yeah.
holidays. They're not as price cognizant necessarily, especially if it's last minute gifts. So, but I mean, Travis, you've shared this story before, but you've got an example when it comes to like price testing with one of the
Right.
items that you actually private labeled and
Right.
sold.
Yeah, so we used to do a private label of, we had a kind of a line of cupcake stands, and, we had all these different styles and, different sizes of cupcake stands, and I
Yeah,
remember, having kind of an idea of what I was gonna price it at, when I got these things, and, we had one large one that was like a 24 count cupcake stand, and when we went to send that into Amazon FBA, I realized that it was oversized, and I had no idea. I didn't realize it. I was convinced that this was the end of my business. It was one of those, when we asked on the magic questions, what was a thing that happened that was horrible? Well, this was one of them.
yeah,
Um, because I had, said I was going to sell it for this, and I realized my oversized product fees were going to be so much more. I wasn't going to make anything. I was
yeah,
going to have to sell for more. I was originally, I think, going to sell it for like 24.99, 23.99. I was trying to do like a 18.99, 20.99, with the different sizes, and then
yeah,
the biggest one was going to be 24.99. But I wasn't going to make but like $2 or something after I shipped them all in, and I don't remember exactly all the math, but um, I decided I was going to take a leap of faith, and I
yeah,
priced them at $32, 32.99, and they sold amazingly. And in fact, um, I continued to raise them until I think at one point I was selling them for 36.99. And then some of my other lower priced ones, I was raising them up. I remember there's one that I was selling for 16.99 at one point. Um, I still have a few more. I probably have like 40 or 50 or so, and they're selling for 26.99. So even you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You have to test this stuff. You have
Yeah.
to figure out if you can raise your prices. I remember several years ago I raised my coffee mug prices significantly for Q4, and I was curious what would happen if I didn't change them back in January. And you know what? I have not changed them back ever since. And that was like 2 or 3 years ago. Because they just kept selling at the same rate, so
Right.
again, you don't know, and sometimes you have this kind of inferiority complex or imposter syndrome. You're like, no one's gonna buy it for this much. It's not true. I don't care how
Yeah.
many 12.99 mugs are selling, how many of those guys are selling them for 12.99 or 9.99, or
Right.
I don't even know how they do it, but I know that I can sell an 11-ounce coffee mug for 19.99 all day, every day, and twice on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah.
But I would have known that had I not price tested it. That's the
Right.
moral of the story.
Right. Yeah. So you always have to do your research. That's the thing. And
Yeah.
that's what price testing is about, is doing research. And Travis, you were telling me before we pressed record that you did some research recently on a very well-known
Oh, yeah.
big character that
Yeah.
it was shocking to me. But this, again, research has its many benefits, whether it's
Mhm.
business or useless pop trivia facts like this.
Right.
Fill them in. I was shocked.
Well, I am a huge Star Wars fan, and, you can ask anybody in my family. I love all that sci-fi stuff, but especially Star Wars, and, I found out, and I don't know if this counts as research, I kinda just found out, on a website, but, most people don't realize that, Master Yoda actually there was some I don't know exactly if it's in the, the official canon or whatever, but he had like an Asian last name, which is really weird because he's like an alien, right? He's Master
Yeah.
Yoda.
Yeah.
Um, but his actual last name, I guess in the books or something like that, is Lehihu. That's his last name. So he's Master Yoda Lehihu.
And that's this week's weekly dad joke. Feel free to use it at all your parties and credit us. And then when they ask you what this is, what do you mean? What's the Print on Demand cast? Just grab their phone, force them to subscribe, and then they'll be good to go. And greatly appreciative for the grassroots marketing that you would have done for us. So awesome. Travis, anything else before we wrap this one up?
I don't think so. I think we've talked about pricing and I don't know. I mean, there's plenty more, but I
Sure.
think that's enough for this week for sure.
Awesome. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to talk with us or learn
Attention
more about
hotline
the show,
fans.
there's the best way to do that, which is joining the Facebook group, printondemancast.com/Facebook. You can request to join, answer the questions. Someone requested to join recently, didn't answer the questions, and I had to painfully decline the membership because I didn't know why they were joining. So answer the questions. Let us know that you're not just a spam bot that's wanting to join groups and add us to your collection of groups. So again, printondemancast.com/Facebook is where you can go to join the conversation. Printondemancast.com/Instagram. We are gaining a lot of followers on Instagram. And like every day I see just a handful of people following. I think we're up to over 800 followers, which is
We
awesome.
should probably post some stuff there.
Yeah, we should do some like lives or something there on Instagram with the people and post more content because they are joining by the droves, which we're greatly appreciative of.
Yeah.
For sure. And then we can also find us printondemancast.com/YouTube is where you can go to find these episodes in video form, as well as Spotify. If you're watching on Spotify, thank you very, very much. And we had a request and we're working on this because I figured out, Travis, you can actually add chapter markers in Spotify too. And I
Ooh.
found this out
Oh, sweet.
because I was listening to a podcast while I was door dashing last Saturday, and pulled up the podcast, and there was chapter like marks, and I was blown away.
Nice.
Didn't know it was a thing. It can be done. So we're working on that as well. And then if you want to support the show other than just a subscription, I shouldn't say just a subscription. If you want to support the show in another way other than subscribing and sharing the show, printondemancast.com/shops where you can go to pick up one of our shirts. They're punny, they're entertaining, and they can be mistaken for really popular logos. So, which is always just the best part. If you don't like social media, you can email us info@printondemancast.com. And you can go to printondemandcast.com to subscribe to the newsletter. That's where you can get tidbits and facts and other pieces of information throughout the week, and a bonus dad joke. So be sure to do that. And there's an annual design calendar that you'll get as well, which will let you know holidays that are coming up, when you should post, when you should prepare them, what you should be thinking of to help you get ahead of the curve when it comes to all things holiday related and designs, and kind of just make sure you're on top of things as well. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing all of you again right here next week. So until then, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.